it's Peter again. This video is going to be called Tales from the Anvil. Now, what I'm going to try and do is to give you some of the expressions that we use in everyday life that actually come from the blacksmith shop. Now, before I do that, I think I'm going to have a little rant. I came across a video the other day where it was 2 hours old and it had had 500,000 hits already. Now, come on guys, that is ridiculous, isn't it? People out there are paying for hits that are artificially generated by a computer. They are not real hits. All my hits on my channel are genuine, and that's why there aren't very many. For example, I put up a video called Workshop Tour with Alison, and Alison is a very attractive blonde young lady that appeared on the video, and it's so far got 73 hits in all. So you know, people are doing it, they're being crooked, they're not genuine hits at all. All mine are genuine hits. Now, those people who have all these hits on their channel, and they know who they are, get extra advertising revenue because of the number of hits. And the number of hits is entirely false, and therefore they are committing fraud. And it's a criminal offence. And I understand that YouTube are going to stop it soon, but in the meantime, be warned. Right, first of all, I think I should introduce you to the anvil. Now, this is a London pattern anvil. It's got the face, a step down from the face to the beak or horn, and it's got 2 holes in it. That's called the Pritchell hole, and that's called the Hardy hole. Now, the Pritchell hole was used by the blacksmith mainly for making shoes when he punched the holes for the nails. The Hardy hole contains a certain number, any number you can take and make, of different tools. Now, for example, we have a Hardy cut-off tool. You can put some hot metal over there, like that, and hit it with a hammer and cut it off. We then have a Hardy spring fuller. Now, you can put a piece of metal between there and hit the top of that, and it makes 2 marks in the piece of metal you're working on. The alternative would be to have a top and bottom fuller together, in which case you need a pair of tongs to hold the metal, you need something else to hold the bottom or top fuller with, and you need another hand to hold the hammer with. And as most blacksmiths haven't got 3 hands, it's not very convenient. Right, that's the introduction to the anvil done and dusted. If anybody does know why it's called a London pattern anvil, I really would like to know. My email will be on the end of this video. Could you please give me a quick email telling me why? Thank you very much for that. Now, the sayings that we have from the blacksmith shop. Well, the first one you've already looked at, and it says, on the face of it, on the face of the anvil. Then we have, I'm looking at my crib sheet, going at it hammer and tongs. Well, I don't think that needs much introduction. An interesting one is, I've got a gas forge, and I can leave a piece of metal in there for as long as I like. I mean, when I pull it out, it might have a little bit of shale on it which you can brush off, but other than that it's perfectly okay. Now, if you have a coal or coke forge, and you leave something in there for too long, it literally burns away. There's nothing left of it. You put it out the fire and there's nothing on the end. Now, obviously, if the blacksmith was using a coal or coke forge, he would have to make sure that he only had enough pieces of metal in there that he could pull out and work on before they got burnt. If he had more than that and they were starting to get burnt, he had too many irons in the fire. Now, when a blacksmith hits something on the end, it makes it shorter and thicker. That's called, well, the old name is jumping up. We have the expression, you're nothing but a jumped up little so-and-so, for example. The modern expression is upset. He's upsetting it. You're feeling a bit upset. Another expression. Then opposite of that is making the thing longer and thinner, which is called drawing out. We have the expression, it was a long drawn out affair, or something like that. Now, I think probably the most interesting one of all, if I make a scroll, I put the the metal into the fire for just a little way, which means taking a short heat, and then I work it on the anvil, beating out the fishtail. We assume I'm making a fishtail scroll, although there are many other types of scrolls. Then I put it back in the fire again, and a bit deeper this time, and I start to turn the scroll. And then finally I put it back in the fire again, and right into the back, so it's the longest heat I can make. Then I take it out, wrap it round the scrolling iron, and pull the scroll round. Now, if you're a very experienced blacksmith, and you're doing that all day long, and you're so used to it, you can do it even without thinking about it. It's automatic to you. He could do it all in one go. He doesn't need to reheat it. He can put it in the fire, take it out, do all the operations with it, make the scroll, and all in one go. Now, if he did it all in one heat like that, he's done it in the heat of the moment. And that's where we get the expression from, in the heat of the moment. Now, if we heat something up red hot, and then we plunge it into oil or water, which means quenching it, then it becomes very hard. It's tempered. And if we let it get too hot again, then it starts to get soft again, and it's lost its temper. So we could combine the two together, really, couldn't we? He lost his temper and said something in the heat of the moment. I think that's quite clever, really. But that's the end of all I've got of blacksmith's expressions anyway. So now we'll talk about the blacksmith shop. Now the village blacksmith was a very important man. We had one till only a few years ago now, about 20 years ago. His name was Jack, and he worked for a firm called Barnes of Bodle Street. They had an agricultural repair shop on one side of the road and a parts department. On the other side of the road they had a parking area and Jack's blacksmith shop. Jack was an enormously big red-faced man, no doubt because the Barneses were next door to the local pub, the White Horse. Anyway, he was enormously strong. He could use a 28-pound sledgehammer in one hand. I do mean a 28-pound, not 14-pound. I remember one day a local farmer went up there and he'd bent the ladder on the side of his combine going through a gate. And he said to Jack, "Can you straighten this for me, Jack?" And Jack said yes. And he said, "Well, you're going to have to put some heat on it, obviously." And Jack said, "No, I won't." And just got hold of it and bent it straight. Now, the village blacksmith I forgot to say, the whole place has been redeveloped now. There's nothing but houses. The whole thing has gone, which I think is rather sad. There's only one thing left, and that's the name of one of the cottages on the site of the blacksmith shop, which has got a sign of an anvil and a hammer, and it's called Blacksmith Cottage. Now, the village blacksmith, as I said, was a very important man in times gone by. If you wanted a cooking utensil, a pot, a pan, or anything like that, the village blacksmith would make it for you. And that was because there was nobody else to make it. If you wanted a new head for your hammer, or a new head for your axe, or whatever, he would make it for you. The other thing, that he had a boy, it was very feudal in those days, an apprentice, but he called it his boy. And the boy would make nails and a little jig when he wasn't in the service of his master. And he was paid, I forget now, one old penny per 100. Anyway, if the blacksmith wanted to summon him to do something for him, he'd beat on the anvil, and the apprentice would drop what he was doing and come along and for his master's service. Mainly it was to be as a striker, which meant that the apprentice held the hammer, a big sledgehammer, and the blacksmith held something like a swage in one hand and the hot metal in the other hand. And when the blacksmith nodded his head, the apprentice would hit the metal. And if you remember the old Laurel and Hardy film, he said, "Take this hammer, and when I nod my head, hit it." Anyway, the blacksmith also made all sorts of things like nuts and bolts, and he made a nut and a bolt as a pair. In other words, if you took a bolt that he'd made previously, and then a nut that he'd made, it wouldn't fit. It was only made in a pair. And the chances are that if you took a nut made by one blacksmith to another blacksmith and tried to fit a bolt to it, it was about as likely to fit as Shergar was winning the Grand National ridden by Lord Lucan. So there was a big problem. And along came a man called Joshua Whitworth, decided that we must do something about this. So he set about making a standard. And the standard was the number of threads per inch, the angle of the thread, the depth of the root of the thread. He standardized the whole thing. Unfortunately, not everybody agreed with it. And for example, the cycle manufacturers didn't want it. They wanted their own threads, British Standard Cycle Thread, BSC. The plumbers didn't want it either. They wanted their own thread, BSP, British Standard Pipe Thread. And the electrical manufacturers didn't want it either. They wanted their own standard, BA, British Association. And obviously on the continent, they all wanted metric. And in America, they wanted their own standards too. They were UNF and UNC, Unified National Fine and Unified National Course. And all those standards are still in existence today. Now in my shop, we use all metric. I've got a set of metric taps and dies. I've actually got an old set of other taps and dies which have got some Whitworth in them and things like that, but all the rack of bolts we've got are all metric. The Americans are in fact having to come to terms with using metric. That's because America is a big market for continental cars like Fiat and Volkswagen and things like that. so they're being forced into using metric threads whether they like it or not. But I mean, that's just the evolution, the way it goes. Well, that just about wraps it up, I think. I hope you liked this video and found it interesting. Please subscribe, and please leave me a comment on whatever you want to say, even if it's rude. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.